Stranglers were formed in 1974 under the name the Guildford Stranglers, though none of them came from Guildford. I guess that this was some kind of homage to the Boston Stranglers. Um, but they dropped the Guildford bit after a while, after not very long actually, and just became the Stranglers. They were formed effectively from a blues guitarist, a classical guitarist, a jazz drummer, and a guy who played keyboards in military bases in Germany. And they used ice cream vans as tour buses in the early days, basically because their drummer owned a fleet of ice cream vans. In about 1976, they fell in with punk, so they became quite strongly associated with punk. Musically, they weren't quite as raw as punk, but they became part of that scene, and they've kept going ever since. They've had a continuous existence and are still going. They got more sophisticated and maybe more poppy over time. Um, they've had quite a turnover of people, and of the original people, only the bassist is left. But a couple of them didn't leave that long ago, actually. And they've had around about 20 albums in that time. The other thing of interest is they have an association with rats. Hi, my name's Dan. So this was the fourth album by the Stranglers. It's my first time listening to it, and there's no songs I know on it. I have heard a reasonable amount of, Stranglers hits and things like that in the past, and I've reviewed one of their albums already. I would describe this as being new wave, and to explain what I think that means, I'm going to say that it's music that's got the immediacy of punk, but not the rawness. It's a bit more sophisticated. It's often quite poppy, and as opposed to punk that is quite, um, can be fairly extreme and whatever the opposite of sophisticated is, simplistic, I guess. It's fairly unique though in its own way. So the sounds that are used here is there's a jangly electric guitar, there's drums, there's a crunchy bass, and they're known particularly for the sound of the bass that they use. And then the thing that's unusual about them, compared with other bands of the time, is their use of organ and other synth, and particularly like Hammond organ type rock organ in there in the mix. Actually, on this album, there's quite a lot of use of synth as well as the organ, to the extent that sometimes some of these tracks sound quite synth pop like, which is not what you'd associate with a band that has got associations with punk. But yeah, they were just who they were, and it's what they did. They have a strange thing that they do sometimes on this album, which is that a bit of a cavalier attitude towards the idea of key and harmony. So it's not that things are out of tune with each other, it's just that they're unrelated to each other. Rhythm wise, they are related, but in terms of the notes, they're odd, odd combinations, and so this makes it quite discordant at times. They've got songs about all sorts of stuff here, not really love songs at all. In fact, there's a single love song on the album. I might be wrong. Um, there's a song about heroin, there's a song about ritual suicide, there's a song about the Iranian Revolution, there's a song about genetic engineering, there's a song called Men in Black, which I'm not really sure what it's about unless it's about themselves, because they were sometimes referred to as the Men in Black, and it features sped up vocals that I don't know if anybody watching this will be old enough to remember. Pinky and Perky was a UK TV show based on these pigs, I think, that had sped up speaking that made them sound like speaking like this. There's a song called Dead Los Angeles, Los being Loss, based on the impressions that Hugh Cornwell, the lead guy, had of LA after a visit. They've got some tracks have got somewhat bizarre fantasy pictures going on. Not quite sure what's going on in Baroque Bordello. It's an interesting track. There's references to Norse mythology in here as well. So all in all, I found it pretty engaging. There's some interesting songs. There's some good poppy beats going on at times. It's quite easy to get into. I did sometimes find the jangly discords a little bit much, but it's pretty varied and it's quite a good listen, I would say. So I'd love to know what you think of this album. I'd love to know what you think of this review, of my channel, of anything you want to talk about within reason. Please type something engaging and informative into, or just whatever you feel like, into the comments box. I do read all comments. So that's it from me for now.